Hello, welcome back to marksgardenuk at Rose Cottage near Nantwich in Cheshire. This video is going to be about bay trees. The situation is a wonderful friend and neighbour, Wendy and John, have donated these two beautiful specimen bay trees. They've had these for years and they've nurtured them and cared for them, but sadly this winter in that really cold spell they really suffered from the cold. Now you might not be able to see it from there because of the green background, so I'll do a bit of a rotating view. I'll also rotate the plants while I'm talking to you, so hopefully you get an idea of the damage that these plants have suffered. You can see it on the reverse of this one. I know they were protected, I saw them protected, they were covered in fleece, but we had such a very sharp cold spell this winter that even the protection didn't protect them from the damage. And Wendy and John don't want these outside their front door anymore, so I've been the beneficiary of that, and I'm going to rescue them and bring them back to life. And in this video I'm going to tell you all I know about bay trees and how they should be cared for. Let me show you what I've got ready. I've got some compost, obviously, because they're going to need fresh compost. I've got some slow release fertiliser. By the way, there's a link to that in the description box below this video. I've got 2 trugs. The process I'm going to follow is I'm going to take this bare root inside that polythene bag. I'm going to take a lot of the soil away and cut away some of the roots, and I'm going to plunge them in water and let them get a good soak. Whilst they're soaking, I'm going to take away a lot of the dead matter. I've got a new pair of secateurs. I did a video on them yesterday actually. Brand new set of secateurs. I want them to be clean and sharp, and I'm going to cut away into the dead branches until I reach life. Then they're going to be repotted into these tubs. Now these are not their permanent home. These are such beautiful specimen plants. I'm actually going to design something around these. There's going to be a little garden dedicated to these beautiful bay trees. So I'm going to put them in here for now, just while they recover and recuperate. Now, look at the shape of this pot. I'm putting them in these pots so that they're easy to get out of. Now, my experience with putting plants in big pots is sometimes you buy these straight edge pots with lips over and they grow into them and you can never get them out without damaging the pot. So I'm putting them in these. The downside to a pot this shape is they're less stable and they can blow over, and also obviously there's less volume of soil. But I'm going to be putting them in there temporarily against this hedge just for now, in the shelter. They'll get plenty of light, but they'll also be protected from the wind against that hedge. This is a big box of crocks, a big bucket of crocks. When I say crocks, I mean basically old terracotta pot that's been broken. And what you do is you put those over the drainage holes in the bottom of there, and they allow the excess water through, but they stop the soil from clogging up the hole. So that's going to be bottom of those 2 pots. These plants are Mediterranean type plants, and if you think about the soil in the Mediterranean, it's going to be gritty and dry and well drained. So you need to be putting them into gritty, dry, well drained soil. You need to replicate their native environment. These are very heavy, and I was wondering how I was going to get those into these pots. So I've rigged up a system of planks here. You can see 2 chairs, and I get them up here, and then I'm going to topple them into the pot. So stick around because we might have a "you've been framed" moment on this video. So that's what that's all about. So let's get on with the job. I'll bring the camera a little bit closer and I'll show you in more detail what I'm going to do. And the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the roots. So I'm going to topple it onto this board here very gently, try and give the top as much protection as I can, and then I'm going to take this bag off. Just going to tear around there and have a look. There's a cable tie here. These are my old secateurs. Those are my new ones. They're from Kingswood Green. I'm very pleased with them. Again, there's a link below this video for those, and there's a full video on them where I demonstrate them. You'll see quite a lot of them in this video anyway. So let's just take this cable tie off the top here and get this out of this polythene bag. And let's have a look at these roots. It's nice to see here that there's already some drainage underneath this. These have been in pots for a few years, but they've been nurtured and cared for and well fed. So I'm now going to do something which probably looks a little bit aggressive, but I'm just going to stab away at this and just take away a lot of the soil that's around this root ball. Good sandy soil, this well-drained sandy soil. Again, Mediterranean plants like well-drained sandy soil, but because they're in pots, you have to feed them. In actual fact, plants in pots like this, it's not a bad idea every couple of years to take them out of the pot and take away a third of the roots so that the roots can replenish and renew themselves. Again, it seems quite dramatic and aggressive, but it will do the plant good in the long run. It will help it to get fresh roots and fresh soil, taking away this gravel from the bottom. Let's have a look at the other side of this. It's quite compacted, this, and that often happens with plants that have been kept in pots because they grow into the space that they've got. And if you think about this plant, it's probably been in a pot for several years and it's grown into its accommodation. I'm just tearing away there at the root ball. This root ball will be significantly smaller when I've finished. Look at these beautiful stems. There's actually 4 stems there that go up. They're plaited together, and you can see the age. There's lichen on here, and they're welded together. I mean, that's a bigger feature of the plant as the top, in my opinion. I love that. Let's carry on scratching away at this root ball. So that's the root ball exposed, and quite a lot of lovely roots exposed too. The next thing I want to try and do is get that into that trug so I can give it a good soak. That'll hold water. I'm going to do that. Well, let me think. I'll lift this over here. A nice soft cushion for it. And then I will lift the root ball and I'll lever it onto that. And then we'll introduce that. There we are. Ingenuity, that, isn't it? I'm going to do the same for the other one. I'll see you in a moment when I've got 2 soaking, and then we'll start pruning the top, and I'll talk to you about pruning. So there we are, 2 bay trees soaking away in these trugs. They really are beautiful trees. I'm looking forward to these coming back to life. Now, I brought this. See that pot there? That's about the same size as the root ball. Just to illustrate that I'm not going much bigger, but I don't need to because this is not a permanent home. So anyway, that just gives you an idea. And I'll be able to use this as a measure to decide how much compost I need, because I'll put it in there and I'll backfill around there, and that will be the compost I'll use. So you'll see me doing that in a minute. Anyway, let's talk about pruning. I've got my new bypass secateurs here. I'll bring you in a bit closer so that you can see. Unfortunately, these are going to look worse before they start looking better, because what I'm now going to do with these very clean, very sharp bypass secateurs is prune back until I see signs of life in the cross section of a twig. And if I've gone that far, I can see there is no green there, that's dead. But the same branch, if I go a little bit further down and snip it, I've got to a point where there's green. Now, if you want to get these to create a particular shape, what you do is you prune down to a bud that's pointing in the direction that you want the growth to be. Now this is going to be a ball, and I just want the growth to come out and radiate from the centre and reform into a ball. So I'll just cut them straight down, and wherever they grow, they'll grow into the light. And that's what I'm doing now, as I'm introducing light into the centre of this plant, and where there is light, there'll be new growth from living wood, living material. So it's going to be a slow process, quite deliberate process now, where I actually cut back to living matter. And you can see there, that is alive. I'll probably do this, record it in fast forward, and I'll join you again when I've pruned them all back. Now if this wasn't a hospital case, a plant that's been brought back to life, you really shouldn't be pruning more than a third of the plant away at any one time, and then the remaining 2/3 will feed the plant whilst the third grows back, if you see what I mean. But on this occasion I've not really got much choice. I'm going to be pruning out all the dead stuff. What's really nice about this is I can see green down here. I can see green just within the plant here, so it's definitely still alive. I don't know if you can see that there, but there's a green leaf there where my hand is. I'll see you in a minute. You'll be prepared for a shock, because this will look like nothing when it's pruned. But I did this with my olive trees last year, and when they came back with gusto, and they outgrew themselves very quickly. So I'll see you in a moment when these two balls are pruned. So there they are. They actually don't look as bad as I thought they were going to look. Quite pleased actually. And what was quite refreshing about it as I was doing is there was quite a lot of lovely green growth inside there. So there's quite a lot of life left in these two bay trees. This is the soil that I removed from the root ball, and that will probably be quite sterile, but I can use that as a seed sowing mix, so I'm going to keep that. And now I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to measure up the amount of compost I need. So that's about the same size as that. There will be crocks underneath this compost, but I'm just using this as a measure. Now, as always, leave a couple of inches at the top above the soil so that you can get water onto it. And what I usually do is I usually fill that space with gravel, and then you can get lots of water in, and you soak these maybe once a week in the summertime. You don't water them every day. You give them quite a lot, and then you let them dry out, and then you give them a lot again anyway. Let's get the open bag of compost, which is here first, and put some in the bottom. I'm going to tip this back out again in a moment and enrich it with some of that slow release fertilizer which I mentioned. So I'm just using this as a kind of way of measuring them for now. So that's sitting quite nicely there. It's always very compacted, this, so it's a good idea to get it out of the bag and crumble it up a bit. So rather typically for the UK, it's decided to throw it down end of March, April showers. Now, I promise you a You've Been Framed moment. For those that are not watching in the UK, You've Been Framed is one of those television programmes where they catch silly moments on CCTV. Anyway, my intention now is to roll those two plants up this ramp onto these chairs. And then topple them down into the pots in which they're going to be planted. However, before I do that, I'm going to empty the compost out and sprinkle in some slow release fertiliser, and I'll be doing that on the board over there. You don't need to overdo it with this stuff. It's slow release, a small handful just around there, and that'll keep it going for the next 12 months whilst it remains in these pots. I'll be doing this twice, of course. I've got two of these to do. This is the compost from one of them. Now, of course, it's raining and the sun's out, which is going to make for interesting viewing probably. Anyway, before I put some compost in here, a layer of these crocks, just broken old terracotta pots. It covers the drainage holes in the bottom of the pot, but it allows the water through but not the soil. And these being Mediterranean plants, they like good drainage. Now for the fun bit, I'll put some compost in, then just a base layer of compost, then I will try and wheel one of the plants and drop it into the pot. success. And now the rain is now stopping. Quite a lot of space around this plant here, which I will now backfill with that compost, fresh compost, which has been enriched with slow release fertilizer. Now I want this to be vertical, so I'm going to keep taking a step back from a distance. You can see the verticalness, if that's the right word, from a distance. You can't really see it close up. I think that's about right for now. I'll start backfilling it. Another tip, this is where it's going to be. It's in situ. Before you make it very heavy by putting all the soil back in, bring it to the place where it's going to finish up. Otherwise you'll have a job to move it. So that can stay there where it's going to live for the next 12 months, and I shall start backfilling it. Now some of this has landed on the top of the root ball, and that is not a problem. That will act as a nice top dress, and some of those nutrients on the top will leach down into the existing root ball. And as I've mentioned already, I've left a good inch at the top there so that I can flood this when I water it. Now I'm going to finish this off now with a bucket full of pea gravel on top. I just think it will make the plant pop. Several benefits to doing this. Number one, I think it looks really well. It really finishes the top of the pot off. Secondly, it will act as a kind of mulch. It will help retain moisture in the soil, and it will suppress weeds. It will also act as a kind of ballast, because this is a kind of a narrow bottom pot, and it might have a temptation to blow over in a strong wind, but that weight here at the bottom will act as a kind of ballast. So there we go. I'll give that a good watering next. There we are. That's one done. I've got the second to do, which I will do, but I won't show you all of that. You've seen the process once. I'll be back in a minute when I've done that with a recap. But one thing to say here is there might be a temptation to keep the good side of this plant where you can see it. I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to keep the side that's got the big chunk missing exposed, because that's where it will get the most light, and where there is light I'll get new growth. So it won't look great for the first few months. Having said that, it doesn't look anywhere near as bad as it did, and it doesn't look as bad as I thought it would do. But with the bit that's got a chunk missing exposed to the light, it will grow back. Another benefit of pruning it back is letting air into the centre, which prevents diseases. And I did cut out quite a few living branches that were crossing over and rubbing each other. I'll see you in a minute when number 2 is done. Number 2 is going in this space here, just behind me to my right. I'll see you in a moment, and I'll do a recap, and I've got some interesting news for you. See you in a minute. All done. 2. Very pleased with that. I hope you've enjoyed that as much as I've enjoyed it. I'm delighted with these plants, and I'm really excited about the prospects of these growing back and becoming the shape that they used to be, that lovely round ball. Let's have a quick recap. I took them out of the pots. I took a lot of the soil off the roots. I soaked them in trugs of water, and then I cut all the dead plant material from the top back to where I could see green on the stems. I've left the bits that have got bits missing exposed to the light, and I put some slow release food in the fertilizer. I put this gravel on top as a kind of a mulch, which will retain moisture, act as a ballast, suppress weed, and it looks wonderful. They're not staying here. I'm going to design some kind of topiary garden around these eventually. But there we go. Bay tree rescue. Don't forget, the Mediterranean plants, they're like well-drained soil. They're like hot sun in the summer, and you have to protect them in the winter, as this has demonstrated. I'm wet through. and I'm quite hot too. I told you I had some interesting news for you. I have a website, marksgardenuk.com, and I have some Amazon affiliate links on that website, and I was checking my account the other day, and suddenly people have started buying product through my Amazon links on my website. So I've put the link to my website in the description box below this video, and if you click on it, it takes you through to my website, and on that website there are several Amazon products. Now, they're not reduced in price. I'm not giving you any special offers. I'm just telling you about gardening products, but if you buy them through my links, I receive a commission, and of course your support would be greatly appreciated. And if you click on one of the banners on my website, anything you buy in that shopping session, I get some commission on it. It doesn't cost you any more, so it's a great way of supporting my garden, and I can go away and do more projects and do videos about them. Anyway, so that was the interesting news. By the way, if you click on my home and garden link, it will take you through to home and garden. Just remove the filter and you can look at anything on Amazon. Right, so that's all for now. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea. I'll see you soon.